the Insight NBL Show with your hosts, Matrix and Hammer.
Mate, it's round 14. This is a preview only. So just to preface, if there was injuries in round 13, we're recording this before. So we're going to be basically looking at team previews with schedule chat and the captains. It's just super hard to get together over the Christmas period and the 24 hours between Christmas and Boxing Day. I plan on sitting on the lounge and eating leftovers, not recording a podcast.
Yeah, mate, this is as good as it's going to get. If you need any breaking news, updates, injury stuff, keep an eye out on our socials or jump on the Patreon. We'll be chucking everything up there throughout the course of the week.
Mate, absolutely. Just as always, we're looking at the schedule. So the doubles, Bullets and Hawks with honestly a heap to go. We've still got 4 to go with the Hawks. They've played their first double-double by then. 5 to go with the Bullets. They've had an elite schedule through the back end of the year. This is the last of Adelaide's double-doubles. So hopefully you've jumped on Kendrick Davis, Montrezl Harrell, some blokes like that. And I just wanted to look at Taipans because we haven't talked about them for so long. They're on a single and then 3 doubles in a row, playing 4 of the last 5. And as you mentioned off air, they do play that last week in the schedule where there's only 2 doubles. So I think Hawks and Taipans, you're going to want a couple of these guys in to win your head-to-head leagues. But you don't want to lose the semi-final by holding them. I don't know. It's rough.
Yeah. It depends where your priorities are. Like, we've been pretty clear from the start. We're playing overall. But, look, there will come a time where you think maybe I'm out of the running and I'm going to focus on the head-to-head. I'm going to focus on my cash leagues. Could become a factor. So, something to have up your back pocket. Cairns is an interesting one, though. They've become pretty expensive. They're everything we wanted them to be in round 3.
Yeah, they've who cares whether winning and losing? We're talking about Supercoach. Yeah. And I mean, all their cash cows, all those guys that we thought were going to rise in cash have by this point in the year. So it makes it really hard. I just think playing 4 of the last 5, we're talking about guys that are keepers. We're talking about guys that you are completely fine to finish your year, to look back at your history and see, I had Tanner Groves at the end of 2024-25 season.
Are there any guys on the Snakes that you'd be happy to roll with? And I'm talking actually playable. Is it Taran and then Daylight for second?
I think so. Well, that starts our honestly, this starts our week.
He's heating up.
Let's start with Cairns. Mate, it could be Sam Wardenberg. I've rubbished him so much over the last 2 years. I got so excited in that 23-24 season. I thought he was the second coming of Jesus. So I called him Fool's Gold when he started looking like the second coming of Jesus this year. But he actually was. I was just a year late. So I'm not, to quote you, I'm not wrong. I'm just not as right as I usually am. Is that it?
It's close. Look, I was as right as I usually am, and I picked up Sam Wardenberg and was very happy. He, like you said, he was a year late, but he, better late than never. He's been great. His game has evolved, and I think with all the injuries, he's become a focus. I think getting rid of Menenga's cleared that logjam. That was what the problem was last year. They had so many bigs with no clear role description. Wardenberg's been good. The price tag's starting to reflect it, though. And I think that's the problem we're going to have with a few of them. Taran, we wanted to pick up at 199K at the start of the year. Those injuries came in. He's been scoring the basketball well the last couple of weeks. His Supercoach game is good. Outside of that, you might have a sniff at Groves as a backup centre maybe, although he's not as cheap as he was a couple of weeks ago coming back from injury. And then you got the likes of Pedro Bradshaw, who's been, up and down like a horse draws the whole season. You don't know what you're going to get. He's very Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, if I start to see, you know what? At the start of the year, we had all the Napoleon Dynamite vote for Pedro and everything. Pedro's been mid. I don't know.
Mm.
I know you've got kids, but he has started to look like Pedro Pony from Peppa Pig. So Pedro Pony is what he's been the last couple of weeks, which means that I've got zero interest. But you're talking about your Tanners and your Tarrans and your Wards sort of capping out, which I'm fine at this end of the year if you're buying them capping out and they're consistent and they're scoring you what you paid for it. But Pedro is somebody that if he can turn a corner, he's looked ordinary since the injury. If he can turn an order and become a little bit more of a focal piece, I think that you can get a downgrade to Pedro, maybe at in and around that 200K. And again, we're a week behind. I don't know his full price, but he's 240 a week ago. So yeah, he could be 200K. If you start to see some consistency, we liked Pedro's game in the preseason.
And he is dual position player, which makes him that slight little bit more valuable to your squad, a little bit more attractive. I'm not interested. I may be interested come the last round when you're just getting off whoever you can to get guys on doubles. But right now, I think we can find some better options across the other teams.
Mate, Todd Blanchfield got me home last year. I still need to buy a Todd Blanchfield jersey. He won me about $1,200 last year. So, mate, that's Cairns done and dusted. Brisbane, elite schedule. We've been talking about them every week. I don't really want to talk about Cook and Tyrell because we know how good they are. But in this week, they have a tough strength of schedule. They're playing Tasmania, who drag everybody down in the dirt, gross, and Illawarra, who I've talked about extensively as a mid team. So it's just a bad matchup for these guys. But what guys can you get outside of Cook and Tyrell?
Probably the ones you're looking at. It'd be a hold on Prather. Like if you picked him up as when we were targeting him just as a cash cow at the start of the year, I think you're going to keep running with him, unless you've really need that cash to go elsewhere. Bannon, we said, and obviously this is getting recorded pre-round 13, we need to see if he's going to be healthy and play for starters, and B, what the role is. How does that affect him and Prather? Look, Bateman's a guy you've talked about. He's been rocks and diamonds. I don't think out of those guys, we're really seeing a lot out of Brisbane.
I like Bateman if he finds some form, but
big if.
Yeah, well, it's not. I can't see it coming against Tasmania or Illawarra. That's the long and short of it. I think if you had him, you're going to want to get off him before the Tasmania and Illawarra games. You might buy him cheap the following week if he looks really good in these tough matchups. But yeah, I don't think he's a buy this week. So really, we're drawing a line through most of Brisbane, except maybe Bannon, depending how he went. But Hawks, I would say this is a better strength of schedule for the Hawks. They are playing Brisbane and Southeast Melbourne this week. And they've been good.
Yeah. Southeast Melbourne are leaky at the defensive end at best. They push the pace, and we know it's the anti-jack jumpers effect. When you push the pace, there's just more possessions, more Supercoach points to be had. You look at their guys, that forward spot's weak defensively. Matt Hurt can't defend his own shadow. Derek Walton Jr. can't defend anyone. They are pretty weak defenders. And look, Illawarra have got a lot of offensive firepower. I like the matchup too.
I like the matchups. And then, you have a look at who are you going to play. I really like guards every time we play against Southeast Melbourne. So let's start talking about Kell and Harvey. And you like Harvey. I like Kell, I think. I just think Kell, even when he's not scoring that well, will get assists. Yeah. Will get some rebounds. He's a lot bigger than Harvey. He's actually a huge guard in this league when we've got, your elite guards as PJC, Bryce Cotton, Jalen Adams, these tiny guards. Kell's huge out there. So I like Kell for consistency.
We know Kell has that all-round game. He had a triple-double last year when he was playing in Adelaide and had that phenomenal run down the second half of the season. he's gone close a couple of times since. Being that bigger guard against the Mosquito gang in southeast Melbourne, he's going to be able to pick passes all through the key and set up his teammates. His assists, I'm predicting, are going to be high. The leaky defense is going to allow him to set his teammates up, and they've got shooters. They've got scorers inside and out. I think Kell's going to be the key to this one. And the fact that you can downgrade from your PJCs, from Cottons, from whoever you have in your squad to a Trey Kell on 5 straight doubles, that's not a bad position to be in.
Yeah, no, I rate it. So that's
looking inside though. The Sam Froling versus Geordie Hunter. I feel like they're going to cancel each other out in this one.
I think so, and you can also say the same with Sam Froling against Tyrell Harrison, can't you?
Yeah. From a Tyrell Harrison point of view, though, that's a favourable matchup for him. We've talked about it, and I'll keep updating it in our Patreon, the stats for Tyrell Harrison versus genuine bigs versus stretch bigs. And look, he does go better against these guys. So there's something to consider there if you or we're probably just holding Harrison, aren't we?
Yeah, we're holding Harrison basically until I can't remember what it is, round 18. Yeah, which is 2. And he's probably fine to hold on as single because you're going to have other fires to put out. When you look at the Hawks, I think you've missed the boat when it comes to Peatling. But Darius Days is one of those guys that you can just play on form. So if he starts finding himself some form, I like the Southeast Melbourne matchup. I don't think Matt Hurt Matt Hurt's phenomenal. I love watching Matt Hurt play. Not the world's best defender. So Darius Days could cook against him.
Yeah. I don't mind it. As long as Darius Days gets the rebounds, sometimes he just looks disengaged. Sometimes he looks out of position. We talked about Jack White last week when he was moved to the 3 spot. He didn't even get a look near any of the boards. So, look, I'm a wait and see. I like Darius Days' game, and we thought he was back. He had a couple of 30s, and he dropped down to 13 again in round 12. It's a wait and see, but I'm holding him for now.
Mate, we have just been talking about Southeast Melbourne, and there's been a bit of drama, I suppose you'd say, at Southeast Melbourne. So they go single, double, 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 I think, going forward. Derek Walton Jr., again, you can nearly put it on a T-shirt, the amount we talk about it. If at the start of the year you thought that you could get a sub 200K Derek Walton Jr., of course you'd jump on it. There's been a lot going on, and Derek Walton Jr., not the world's best defender. A couple of weeks ago, they got him home against Brisbane. So I think we might be starting to turn a corner with Derek Walton Jr. If I see the form, I think that you could jump on him a week early to prepare for these forwards going forward. He could these doubles going forwards. I think that he's a play through that period. Or you don't even need to play him. Even when you've got him on the bench, he could be getting you 30 points and you paid 200K for it.
Yeah, if you think about what else is available, sub 200K, it makes him look even better. Based on potential alone, you know that he's an elite player. You saw what he did in Sydney. You know what he did in last game. He would have had 43 if it wasn't for the turnovers. I'm going to be watching him really carefully in round 13, and will probably make a pretty hard play at him if that form continues and the opportunity stays there to have as a bench guard for the rest of the season. So that price, you're downgrading from Henschel and you're making 40K in the bank.
Yeah, and I think with that schedule that it is going forward, those 3 doubles in a row, and ignore the last 2 really. You're bringing him in as a 1 weeker because everybody's on doubles in 16 and 17. But there are those doubles in a row. You could probably spend this week just watching Southeast Melbourne, maybe just enjoying some basketball, and then consider whether you think Sobey's a pod through that period. If you think he's going to outscore Parker Jackson Cartwright or blokes like that, that could be your differentiator. Everybody's going to be holding Parker Jackson Cartwright because they've got bigger fires. If you think that you could play a Matt Hurt over Xavier Cooks through that period, that could be absolutely huge for you. So just get your eyes, sit down, watch some basketball. Don't even be too worried about Supercoach this week when you watch Southeast Melbourne. Just scout them out for the next week, because there could be some real pods in Southeast Melbourne, because they get up the floor, they score well. They don't defend really well, but they do score really well. So there could be some big scores. We've saw Glover score 35 points multiple times this year. Like, he was a guy that wasn't on anybody's radars at all. So, yeah, just watch Southeast Melbourne, probably with a notepad.
For sure. And that's great advice, because I really think the key to winning this season is going to be able to have a really playable bench. And if you can pick up quality guys on your bench that you can slip into your starters at a pinch when you need to, because boosts are just about gone for all of us. You only get 2 trades a week. The importance of making cash early in the season is coming to the front now. If you have the cash to have a playable bench, save your trades for those fires you've got to put out each week, that's going to be the key to winning the competition.
Mate, if you can go Parker Jackson Cartwright with his current form to Nathan Sobey the way that he's been playing, I think that's a win. Like,
Yeah.
really. I don't think I'd ever say that. I didn't think I'd ever say that. Sorry.
And if you look at the schedule holistically, you're not losing that many games over the next few weeks.
No, absolutely. Mate, Adelaide, we've talked about them. There's so much cash sitting there. So you've got to hold them through the singles. You can hold these guys through singles. I think we're going to be looking at our captains when it comes to Adelaide. But really, it's KD and Trez and Daylight for me. That's long and short of it.
For sure. And that's where that third player is going to come in, whether it's Sobey, whether it's Keandre Cook. If you've got someone who can cover and be a captain option, that's what you're going to need to be able to carry these guys on the singles.
Mate, looking at Sydney, they've got a good schedule without being great. You could probably hold, like, if I was doing a buy, hold, sell segment, I would say hold Cooks because of, the round 15 next week. But again, maybe hold him a week and think about moving him on to a Matt Hurd or something like that to get a little poddish. His matchups next week, actually, Southeast Melbourne and Brisbane are pretty juicy, though.
Yeah, and it continues. Like, Melbourne might be a little bit tougher, but Cairns, Southeast Melbourne again. I know you got Tassie there in round 17, but look, he's good enough to cover those guys. Tassie are weak at the 4 spot. We've seen a lot of 4s go big against them. Melbourne, the last 2 rounds have hemorrhaged points to bigs.
No, absolutely. Look, unless it's Jalen Adams or Cooks, I'm not really interested in looking too far into Sydney. Perth, mate, I don't like their schedule. I think we can gloss over them. Melbourne, I'm feeling the same. I think I'm done with Melbourne players now that we're at this point in the season.
Yeah, we're done. The only doubles they have left are in those 2 rounds where everyone's on doubles. So essentially it cancels out. It's a single. I'm done with Melbourne. They've been up and down. Jack White's been, look, he's given you some little deliveries on your doorstep. He's given me, some good weeks. He's broken my heart a few times as well.
You spoke really well about how New Zealand, with the schedule that it is, it's just with how bad New Zealand have been, I'm not interested.
No. Draw a line through him. Parker is a hold or a sell. He's definitely not a buy right now. Look, if you're selling, you're probably moving to a Jalen Adams or someone looking at the schedule who has the same schedule as Parker Jackson Cartwright, or you're going to have to look somewhere else across the other 9 teams. But, yeah, outside of him, there has really been not much. We got a glimmer of hope out of Lopez earlier in the year. We got, some, something out of Menenga before it turned to shit. New Zealand, stick a fork in them. They're done.
Let's not talk about Tasmania, because I feel the same when it comes to Supercoach. They've been playing some fairly decent basketball. But I have a really good question for you. Now,
go on.
it's round 14. Kendrick and Trez have played the first of their doubles, but they're on a double this week. If you couldn't afford them last week, do you think that you can get them in just for a single this week? And keep in mind, if you couldn't afford them last week, you're probably burning 2 trades to get in whichever one you don't have, Trez or Davis.
That's a tough one. You'd have to look at the break evens carefully and think, well, why am I getting them this week and not the week after? If they're going to go backwards, you can probably wait a week longer. If they're going to continue going up, and I mean, like at some point, they've got to come back down, but I probably would hold then. I think you might be pod-ish if you go someone else, because you know everyone who's holding them are going to be holding them on singles. Maybe this is your opportunity with a lot more cash to find someone on a double and then move to them the next week and catch up.
Wow, that's a really positive spin. I was more saying you've made your bed, line it, find an alternative. Like, you missed out on that many points. You could play catch up. If it looks like some of these guys are going to make cash, unfortunately, I think you might have to burn 2 trades, but just be really savvy with your second trade, because where we're getting at in that point of the year, if you don't get your 100, your 150K, your 130, even your 200K guys right, I think they're going to just rot on your bench till the rest of the year. So as long as you're savvy about it, maybe getting a 340K guy down to Bannon allows you to go up to, say, a Trez. And then Bannon, I think, is perfectly fine to play on your bench for the rest of the year.
Yeah. I think at this stage, you really need to be looking at least 2 to 3 rounds ahead and doing the math. Just look, work out worst case scenario. If this guy goes up by this much and this guy's going to lose money, can I still afford to do what I want to do next week? And maybe it becomes a case of I need to carry a little bit extra cash on hand.
Mate, we've been talking about Adelaide, so this is the perfect spot to duck into this.
Captain, my captain. Oh, captain, my captain.
I have a spicy take here. I think Montrezl Harrell could be the captain option this week.
You know what? I'm with you there. Tell me why.
Oh, well, they're playing Perth. Of course, great up and down the floor. He's not really quick up the floor for those fast breaks. I think Kendrick will be more involved in that, but it's more addition by subtraction. So I like the Perth matchup for Kendrick. That's great. But I really don't like the Sydney matchup. You've got your Liafas, you've got your Bull Quolls, you've got your Sean Bruce, all getting thrown at Kendrick Davis. Now, you can't stop this man. The man's elite. But you can be a little bit of a speed bump. And he'll get his assists and he will get his and he will score really well. But I just like Trez's matchups a bit better. Look, Perth, leaky. We don't know what's happening. Well, sorry. At this point of recording, I have heard nothing on Doolittle. So I would say he's going to be playing against a subpar power forward against Perth. He could score 60 there. Cooks, probably not the best defender. I think Trez could get him into foul trouble. Cooks has been playing a bit at the centre, playing against Sydney. I don't think that they have anybody that can handle the size and strength of Montrezl Harrell. I don't think too many people can handle the size and strength of Montrezl Harrell. But Montrezl Harrell, I think, is the captain option this week.
100%. Perth are just up and down. They don't play defense anymore. They're throwing up 118 points a game. Supercoach scores against them are through the roof. We saw the game that Bryce Cotton had 59. Parker Jackson Cartwright had 36 and 10 assists of his own. It's easy to get it done against the Cats. I like it there. Almanza, Pinder, Hiram Harris, no Doolittle perhaps. Great matchup. You look at Sydney. The knock on them all preseason was that they're too small. Cam Oliver, Cooks, Lepepe. He's wider than he is tall, I think. Like after that, you go to like a Kwatnoy or that Jack Spurgeon guy who has played all of about 40 seconds this year.
Yeah.
Trez is going to cook. And with the amount of attention that is going to be throwing at Kendrick Davis, he's going to be throwing lobs. And as much as Sydney don't have bigs, think of what Adelaide's got. You got Big Ice Humphreys, you got Jarrell Martin, you've got Montrezl Harrell. They've got big bodies for days. So, mate, I'm with you. He's number one. Number two's Kendrick Davis. And number three is probably Kendrick Davis again.
Yeah, like I love Illawarra as a team. Can't think of any time since Supercoach come out really that have been confident captaining an Illawarra player. They do it by committee. They're the San Antonio Spurs of the NBL. They're a great team to watch. I love them, but they're just not going to produce that 60 Supercoach score, or you're not going to know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
It's just going to be whoever's hot. So Brisbane are on doubles, but we talked about their strength of schedule and how the matchups are really hard this week. It's Kendrick Days or Montrezl Harrell. I think the majority of casual fans will just captain Kendrick Davis.
Yeah.
And I think it could be a real point of difference to get Montrezl Harrell. And worst case scenario, it does cost you 40 points. But I think the upside and what you could get out of this is if Kendrick Davis doesn't cook quite as much this week, I think it's a worthy risk.
And the way that both Perth and Sydney are getting shots up, there's going to be rebounds. And to me, that just says double-double coming for Montrezl Harrell.
Mate, that just about wraps it up. And a nice quick one. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas dinner. I might release this on Christmas Eve, so that people just have a little bit of time to think about it and whenever they get their spare time to listen to the podcast. We always appreciate you guys coming along and listening. Of course, we're not having question time because this is pre-recorded, but we do answer all your questions on Patreon. We are posting on X and Twitter and Instagram all the time. So look, get in contact with us, ask us your questions. This week we'll answer everybody's questions, whether you reach out to us on socials or on our Patreon.
For sure. And if you're looking for a last-minute Christmas present, how about a Patreon subscription? How's that?
Mate, you can get a Patreon subscription. You can get a Matrix corduroy hat. I tell you what, got you sorted, but I think the Patreon subscription's pretty easy. Whether you're into NRL, NBL, everything like that, at least you can get it delivered, even though it's Christmas Eve right now.
One last little present to unwrap.
Mate, that's enough dribble from us. You've listened to an Insight Fantasy Sports podcast. Cheerio.